Okay, Sten, thank you, and the floor is yours, please.
Ja, thank you very much. I'll go. Hvordan er det skifter den tilbage her? Og så skifter jeg bare med den her. Are the pictures, are they changing at your side now? No.
Not changing yet, no. Yes, now it works.
Now it works. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Then we should be ready to take this short presentation about our experience about green refining, which has been, so to say, a long journey. And I'll give you a short introduction on how we went there and where we are now and where we are aiming to go for the future. The first reason why we started to get an interest of green refining was when we had all this discussion about what will be the future of the supply of proteins in the northern part of Europe. We are importing a significant amount of soya from the southern hemisphere, mainly to the pork and the cattle industry in Denmark, and we foresaw already at that time that it could be some reasons that we could have a limited import for the future. So the aim was in this discussion to try to find new protein sources that were locally produced. We were looking at the blue proteins from the ocean, and we were looking at the green proteins, and of course the proteins that we already know from beans and peas and things like that. And the same way, we wanted to see how we could increase the production of green energy in Denmark from the biogas production, and we wanted as well to have be more self-supplied by gas in Denmark and being independent of imports of gas from especially from the east. So this discussion started, and we decided to try to establish a local produced protein factory that was able to extract the protein from the grass, which is digestible for the one-stomach digesters. And from 100 kilo grass, you will be able to extract around 3 kilos of protein, which is available for pigs and for actually as well for human beings. So in order to do that, we established this factory, and it's running like that. We are putting in the fresh grass into this bunker, which you can see on the left side, and the grass is demolished to small pieces, and it goes into a screwdriver where we drive all the juice out of the grass, which will take around 40%. 40% will be on the dry matter side, and 60% will be on the juice side. The dry matter is going directly into the biogas plant. Then we, so to say, heat up the juice to a level of 80-something degrees, in order to coagulate the proteins, and then we are separating the coagulated protein in a separator later on. Then we have the brown juice left, which is mainly containing the phosphate and a lot of calcium. No, not kalium, and then all the sugars. So this juice is put directly into the biogas and degassed, and then you can say the nutrients for the fields are going back to the grass field. So grass does need a lot of kalium to grow. So this circulation is running quite fast actually. And then we have from the decanter we have 60% of dry matter, and we are taking it to another factory to dry it down until 90% dry matter. So that is more or less the process. And the grass is why are we so interested in grass? It's for the first it's a crop that is growing very easily where we live, and it can grow almost a year round, at least after the few climate changes we already had. We can see that the grass is already still growing. When we are having this speech in the middle of November, we are still harvesting grass in Denmark for the time being, and it was definitely not done in my childhood. So something has changed in our time. The estimation is that we have 25 growth days more than we had when I was born 60 years ago. So grass is growing very well in our altitude. And at the same time, on that we have we are living close to a lot of water in Denmark, and we have some lack of nutrients from the agriculture production into the sea and into the rivers, and that is a big problem and a big issue that we need to do something about. So in this perspective, grass can be solving a lot of problems that we had after the new three-party agreement about the future agriculture in Denmark. So the 6 Ys is here now mentioned about the grass, and so it's a multi-purpose tool, you can say, that we have here available. So we can say, are there any new in this? No, we have been growing grass for a lot of many years, and but in the past we mainly used the grass for the cattle feed, and that was the only, you can say, digester we could find to get a good product out of grass. But now we can see that we have now here another option to use the grass in as an industrial raw material. So if the grass is going to be used for protein in the future years, I'm sure. What about the fibers? Are that going to be used for biogas production, or can we find other more valuable value chains? That will of course be checked up during our production to see if there are other options and better options to use the side productions out of this production. So we will see what will be the future, but so far we are here, and I will come back to the economy later on. Sorry, I have now the phone calling in the middle of. So here we can see how we are dividing the feedstock, the input. So we are, as you can see here, we have behind we have a white protein source as well. We have been working now for, I think, more or less 5 years as well, to try to see if we can extract the white protein out of the green protein, because the white protein is not tasting of anything. It's a neutral taste. Green protein is tasting a lot of grass. And you should be really a hardcore vegetarian if you want to eat this. It tastes really awful of grass. So in order to be able to extract the white protein, we have been working with that, and we have a breakthrough. So we know how to do it. It's still very expensive, but I think that the business case will be even better because it's not very good with the green protein. It's still not able to compete with the import of soy price-wise. So then you need to, need to tell other sustainable stories if you want to compete with soya. Soya is by far the cheapest protein still available in the market. But what can be helping the whole process is that we have the synergy with the biogas, where the production of biogas will be helping the whole business case. So, but still, we have a way to go before we can say that it's a business case that is giving us a positive EBITDA. In the Green Tree Party agreement we have as well in Denmark, decided that we should have 250,000 hectares of forest more than we already have. So I think it's completely different than what you have in Sweden. But that is the discussion who has been and the agreement, the political agreement that is made in Denmark, and that is of course to try to protect our groundwater and to protect the water in the oceans and lakes as well. So by planting grass here now, we can avoid this lack of especially nitrogen to the ocean, because the grass is not having any lakes of nitrogen at all, as long as you don't plow it or till it one way or the other. So in some of the areas in Denmark, we are forced to grow grass, you can say. So in this perspective, we need as well to find out what we can use for what purposes we can use grass in the future. So it's more or less you can say we are forced to try to find out how to utilize more grass in the agriculture system. Also in the rotation, in a normal rotation, in potato rotation or other rotations. The agreement between the politicians is, of course, having a quite high impact on our future in agriculture in Denmark. We will be reducing our arable land available for the future with around 10%. And our guess is that the 250 hectares of forest and then 150,000 hectares of grass will be the solution, and that means that the rest of the arable land that is left, we should be able to produce even more in this land, because we still want to be more efficient on the you can say more robust areas that we have left. That is at least the aim. So we are now working on how we can try to find ways to increase the production. A According to the prices, you can see here the prices of soya and the prices of grass protein. So you can see now that the prices is really high on the grass protein. So we are by far not competitive compared to the conventionally soya. The problem is that the soya protein has a leftover of oil, which has a very high price, and our leftover of fibers has a very low price. So that is actually what is creating the problems. And so in order to build up this industry, we need to have subsidies at least for the first 5, 6, 7 years in order to build up the industry. When the industry is built up, and we have been building it up together with the biogas industry, and the biogas is playing a part of the role and paying a part of, so to say, the bill, then I'm sure that we will be able to have a sustainable business case built up on this. But we need to have some help in the beginning. The white protein is, of course, the most important thing, the most interesting thing here, how we can put that into the market. And we have been working together with the big dairies on this side, because the dairies has quite a significant and developed market on these white proteins, especially from whey protein, but other proteins as well. So if it's possible for us to come with a plant-based alternative to the whey protein, that would be I think the best and the most profitable market to enter. So that is, of course, the aim and the dream for the future, that we will be able to enter this market, which happens to be quite hot, at least for the time being. So all this, and the ambition is that we of course have to renew from at least the Danish agriculture industry our social contract with the society which we are a part of. We need to have oh, that was the wrong part. We need to have we need to be supplying the food and the energy to the citizens. We need to capture and storage, maybe also CO2. We need to optimize the cover of land and to have as much as possible locally produced protein, and we need as well to increase the plant-based food supply for the population. So that is more or less what we see from our side, that we can. We have an issue sometimes, some now and then in Denmark, that the population thinks that the farmers are destroying the nature and are not good to the animals, and all kinds of issues here. So of course nobody wants to have a reputation like that. So we are trying the best we can that to try to tell another and better story about our industry. So we have better options for the growing of plants in the northern part of Europe. So the more plants we grow, the more CO2 we can capture. We are growing in Denmark around 800,000 hectares of grain, and this grain is dying off, you can say, in the middle of July. And that means that we are closing down almost half of our production capacity of carbon capture, or you can say photosynthesis in the middle of the summer, where the production capacity is at the highest. It's honestly spoken, not very intelligent actually. So to renew and rethink our ways of growing our arable land will be definitely an issue that we need to focus on for the future. So double cropping, one way or the other, will be more and more of interest, even though, or even after we had an increase of production days in our altitude. So we have to rethink completely how we're using our arable land in order to be able to catch as much CO2 as possible with the less input of nitrogens. So that is the aim for the future, and that is what we're working on, and trying to come up with good systems how to do that, and that will be a part of our recommendations to the government for the future. We're working on that. So the biogene CO2, as we see it, will be the you can so to say the future gold mine of agriculture. The biogene CO2 will be undersupplied if we are reducing the fossil utilization, and we need to recover everything with biogene CO2. Then all the CO2 we can catch is the more the better, and if we can cascade utilize it via the power to X industry. These will be together with the biogas industry will be, I think, definitely a part of the solution for the future if we want to have green energy for mainly for aeroplanes, the sustainable aviation fuel, and as well for the marine fuels for the big ocean ships. So the focus will be to catch where we can catch the biogene CO2 on point sources. We are today from the biogas industry in Denmark cleaning up the raw biogas to clean methane, which means that we have 65% clean methane, and we have 35% clean CO2 that we are evaporating today from the biogas industry. We are not catching it. We are not using it for anything. We're just putting it out to the atmosphere. So that is actually quite stupid to do that. So everybody is working now heavily to try to catch this CO2, or to at least to add up with extra hydrogen, so we can methanize the CO2 and put it into the grid in Europe on the gas. So this way will most probably be the first way to utilize it, but there will be other ways to utilize the biogene CO2 for the future. We're looking on a lot of options here. So and there's a lot of opportunities, even to use the biogene CO2 as the feedstock for the single cell protein production in tanks. It's also an option. So this CO2 that we can catch with the plants will definitely be the high-end value product for the next generation. Yeah, I think that was more or less what I had, and I hope it was not so difficult to follow. But I cannot see any of you, so it's a little bit different. But that's how it is with these kind of things. But if any questions should have been appearing, then I'm ready to answer any question you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sten, and you came out perfectly, I assure you. And I will see if we have questions. Yes, we have one here. Why I think we can bring up you one. Yeah, you are already okay.
Thank you very much for this very interesting inputs you gave on what can be happening in Denmark. And I understand that the Vestjyllands, that's a cooperative business that you have. So you have farmers as owners.
Yeah, 4,000 farmers is.
Yes.
Yeah.
How many?
4,000 farmers is owning.
And you started much in feed, and now I understand that you are much in biogas and going into this biogenic carbon dioxide. So my question is actually, has it been difficult to include the farmers with all these? I mean, I see you as very in front now with new solutions. Is it possible to get the farmers, the owners, with you, or are they driving you? I'm a bit curious that how do you come into this position as a company?
Yeah, as it has been a walk in the park. Yeah, no, it's not that easy. Of course, we are a normal, you can say whatever you can say, old-fashioned cooperative, which is mainly our main production is feed and cereals and trading cereals and fertilizers and things like that. So how did we go into how did we end up into the biogas production or into the refining? Yeah, it happened over time. Of course, the motivation came from the management. It was not a motivation coming from the board. I have to say, it's the management team who motivated this, and how did we succeed in changing our strategy in the company? Yeah, it's like changing strategies in all other companies. You have to start to have a good business case, and or at least to have a good strategy to see what will be the future. Where can we see that the future will bring us on the long term, and cooperatives, they have this option that they can invest in long term, they can make long term investments, and of course we did not do this without our board's decision. The decision is taken by the board, but the motivation came from the management team. And where we are today, we are very satisfied with our investment into the biogas industry. I'm afraid that we will not be able to keep us at the end of the table for the future, because this biogas industry is really requiring a lot of investments, and I don't think that the farmers will be able to raise significant or sufficient capital for the development of our biogas company. So on the long term, I'm afraid that we, or maybe even on the more shorter terms, I'm afraid that we need to have other investors around the table. It could be whatever infrastructure funds or other pension funds who needs we need to have as owners in this company in order to be able to develop the CO2 capture and the Power-to-X industry and these kind of industries. It requires a lot of investments. It's not for farmers, but still farmers can supply a very important feedstock, the biogene CO2, in all kinds of ways. So in this respect, I think the farmers will be able to play a central role in the future industry.
Do I have time? Yeah. Just a quick question. I understand the concern regarding the price of the protein, and I understand that now you're focusing very much to reduce it, to increase the value of the white protein. But have you also considered using the side stream of the cellulosic side stream and evaluate this? And do you think that this could help to minimize the price as well of the protein that you're using for feed, or this is something that for now you're just leaving for the research?
Yeah, there is a lot of project going on, both on the liquid side stream and also on the fiber side stream. Today, I would say that the best price we can get is in the biogas industry, and because this will be considered as a waste biomass, and that means that it will loosen the high end certificate on biogas. So this means that it will be considered as the so to say the most expensive biogas we can produce is when we have this waste certificate on it, and we can even sell the certificates as a non-subsidized. I don't know if you know, but we have in Denmark a subsidy for the biogas industry, but we have actually taken our biogas plants out of subsidy because we can sell the biogas in Europe for the better price on the free market than to have on the subsidized market. And that is very positive. So that means that this part of the you can say the total business case is actually contributing quite a lot to the total case. And it's even better than the one I showed because the certificates has increased quite much in value after that the maritime fuels has put in requirements for green fuels for the future. So these requirements, political requirements for green fuels, will you can say would have a positive price impact on our biogas industry. So it will be difficult, as far as I can see, to find something which is better. I'm not saying that we should not find something that's better. We will always. We have a lot of projects going on with the universities in Denmark and one university outside Denmark as well, to see if there are other and better options. For the feed industry, for cattle feed mainly, we have been trying to utilize it, but it's very difficult to utilize because we will have a lack of quality for the feed purposes. The biogas is not so has no taste, so it doesn't matter with the taste as long as the nutrients are there and the dry matter is there. Then the biogas will work. I'm not saying that we should not try anything else, but on the short term, I'm sure that the biogas will be the industry which is paying the highest price, and that means that we will be building these refineries in close connections to the biogas industry, and then it's very interesting, of course, with the white protein, and I have big dreams about what this could end up in the future with a white protein which is completely plant-based. I think that will be a nice story. I'm afraid that I'm too old when it's going to be a success, but I hope the next generation will benefit from this.
A question, Morten Amby, Aarhus Universitet. Hi, Sten.
Hi.
Thank you for a very nice presentation. It's really good to see how you connect all the different initiatives towards bioeconomy and biorefinery. Can you you mentioned just now the white protein and where you will be putting biorefineries. Can you disclose perhaps a little bit on what is the next important step in the development of green biorefineries in Denmark, or your approach? How fast do you think you will move, and where and what?
Yeah, of course it can be a very long answer. I'll try to make it short, but
Thanks.
But we have in the Green Party discussions or the agreement, we have allocated 10 billion Danish for the purpose of pyrolysis, and this pyrolysis industry, I think, will be having a very hard future. I don't know if it's going to be an industry at all, or if it's going to be the solution at all. But some of these funds, I think, will be better used in developing this industry. We have an agreement that we need to fulfill the reduction of 14,000 tons of nitrogen to the ocean in the end of 2027. And the shortcut of this one will be seeding more grass in the lowland and these lands areas where we know that we have a big low retention of nitrogen. So this industry will be coming anyway. So that means that if we are getting the subsidies that we need to underscore the profit of the green protein, I think we only need a short period, 5-7 years. Then I'm sure that we will be able in this period to develop also the green and the white protein, because extracting the white does not mean that the green is gone. There's still green left, and if the green can go for animals and the white can go for the food industry, that will be the aim. The problem is that we cannot marketing anything before we have it on the shelf. We can go to the supermarket, say we can produce pigs or chicken or whatever, eggs by local produced grass protein. Yes, of course. How many you have? We have 10 eggs. Okay, that was not a lot. So we need to have to start to have a product before we can start marketing. If we're marketing before we have the product, then the market will be waiting forever on the product, which will never come, and then it doesn't work like that. So we need to have so to say a help to get the ketchup out of the bottle. So that will be the most, I would say, efficient way. And we have done it before in Denmark. We did it with sugar in the past. We did it with potato starch. We did it with wind energy, and we did it as well with biogas. So making these kind of subsidies for the starting off of new industries has been quite successful. So I think it's the way to go. And then, of course, we have all the issues about how to get the white protein novel food approved, and it takes a hell of a lot of time and a lot of money, and who is going to pay this money? And there's always these kind of obstacles and small bumps on the road that we need to solve as well. And then, of course, we need to have also in the future the good cooperation with the universities who can maybe help us solving out some of these issues that is appearing during time. So that is. I hope that was more or less the answer on a very difficult question. Morten.
Thank you, Sten.